Welcome to Brilliant Fools. I am Adam Green, hopefully going from being a brilliant fool to becoming a brilliant fool. And hopefully you can join me on that journey as well. I want to address something today that is the concept of, it comes up all the time in leadership development circles, and it's this concept that you can't lead where you haven't been. So you can't lead someone to where you haven't already been yourself. It's an idea that sounds good on its surface, and we'll explore that a little bit, but also we'll kind of look at where that might fall a little bit short, where it may not be quite as accurate as it seems on the surface. So what is that concept, first of all? Essentially, it says you have to have success in a certain area before you can lead others there. Like, you have to have actually been there yourself, and then you can lead others and tell others how to get there, right? Essentially, you have to be proven, you have to be qualified, successful, etc. And if you haven't had those things, if you haven't shown that history, that pedigree, then you are essentially disqualified. And it seems right. It seems right at first. Anyway, in a broad sense of how it works, there's a few ways you can look at it. It's you only want to be led by those people who have success in the area that you're looking to get into, you're looking to be, the areas you want to be successful. So it's an encouragement to choose your mentors wisely, right? So you want to identify who it is that you're going to have as a mentor, but in that identification, you're looking for those who have already done it and been there, and that makes sense. It makes sense logically. You know, I want to be taught how to do carpentry work by someone who is already a master carpenter, somebody who's done it well, who has the pedigree. I can see the work that they've done. Accounting. I want to be taught accounting by the guy, who's been a partner at a big accounting firm, right? That's who I want to teach me how to do my accounting work. I don't want somebody who's never done it before, or just a small businessman off the street, something like that. Okay, and from a biblical standpoint, you can even point to examples like Solomon, where we can learn from his experience in order for us to be more successful as well. And that all seems to make sense. It seems to run pretty well, but in fact, I'd say it's almost kind of awesome for a mentorship kind of standpoint, for discipleship, for passing on knowledge, skills, techniques. Even in the business world, when you're talking about some concept like discipleship, yeah, that can sound like a spiritual kind of term, and something that's good for the church, but that's not practical in the business world. It's the same thing in the business world. Discipleship at the time of, say, Jesus' day, that was simply you're following someone around and you're learning from them how to do all the things that they're doing. I think you could probably even say that Jesus, because he was known as Jesus the carpenter among his own people, you could say that he was discipled by probably Joseph as far as how to do the carpentry work that he did. And then he discipled in the area of Scripture, in the area of the law, the area of how to live and how to live rightly and righteously among his disciples. There were many other things he did as well. But in the area of discipleship, that's essentially what it is. You're a living example for someone. So in that case, it makes sense that you have to be there in order to show someone what it's like to be there. But how should that already be done? Again, you may already be doing it, especially if you own a business. You might be showing some people already. If you have, I was a plumber's assistant for a while. That plumber was showing me what to do. He already had been there. He knew what he was doing, and so he was showing me what to do. It's pretty simple like that. You're probably already doing it at home. If you ever had to look up how to do something on YouTube, then you're already looking and to follow someone who has already been where you're looking to go. Something as simple as, a brake job or an oil change. If you're looking that up, on YouTube and then trying to do it yourself, there you go. If you're looking to replace a light switch in your wall, kind of a pretty straightforward thing. But if you want to make sure you know all the ins and outs and turning off the fuse and how to find that out, you look it up or you ask someone who knows what they're doing, and then you're following someone who's already been there. It's great. It works really well in that case. It's intentionally seeking out those who have been where you want to go, and you're basically asking for directions. Hey, how do I get there? You know a lot about this place. You know how to get there. How do I get there? In the business realm, it's also looking to find those faithful people who can teach others also. That's a biblical concept. Teach these things to faithful men who can then teach others also. So you want to keep it moving, keep it passing on. It's essential in the business world to be able to train people like that, to be able to get them to do your job. You're almost working yourself out of a job. That can sound very almost intimidating and insecure, but the more you can do that as a business owner, the more you free up your time to be able to move in different directions and be able to do different things. It's the only way I know of to truly be able to grow your business beyond yourself. Otherwise, you're always going to be limited to what your own capacity is, what your own hours are. And that doesn't really help other people out either, does it? I mean, you're not really... If I only do what I know how to do and I don't pass that on, then I'm not helping other people grow. I'm not helping to put money in other people's pockets, whether it's me paying them or them getting trained to be able to be paid by somebody else. It's a very self-serving thing. And self-serving things, they fall flat after a while. They really just don't fill that void of fulfillment. I mean, it just doesn't work. So I would say even on a practical level in business, when you're hiring, this looks like looking more for the character of the person than it does looking for the ability that they have. So character over competency, authenticity over ability, if you want to call it that. Now, make sure they can still do the job that you're looking for them to do, that they can still at least grow into it if they don't have the capacity for it, don't have the ability, or whether it's the head knowledge that they can't get their minds around, or if it's the actual, if it's a very hands-on type job or physically demanding job, if they can't do it, that's one thing. Got to make sure they can do it, but you want to make sure to hire high quality, high character people more than anything else. An example I would give is I worked with a guy one time who was looking for a specifically credentialed employee. So he wanted to hire somebody. I saw after about 6 months of a revolving door, these people would come in, they had the license, and it was a service business, so he wanted to be able to stick them on a truck and get out there and go. So they'd have the license, and they'd go out there, and then they'd leave after... sometimes it would be 90 days, 30 days, a week. Sometimes they didn't even actually make it through the initial process. So after seeing this for a little bit and seeing the owner get very frustrated with it, I talked to him about an assistant that he had and that had come and worked with him on a few different jobs, did an excellent job at the actual craft itself, even picked up on it very quickly, and was a high quality, high character person, made sure that what they did was going to be a good quality job. That was one of the reasons, there were some of those that came through that revolving door that got fired because their quality was terrible. Well, finally, after some coaxing, some convincing, the owner said, all right, I'll give him a shot. His big hang up was, I need somebody licensed, somebody credentialed. If I don't have somebody credentialed, then I can't get him on a truck. And I said, well, if you bring him in, will you be able to get him licensed? He does good work. The owner finally brought him in, and within 2 years, the guy basically was running the place. He was training others who were coming in, and he was helping them be able to get established and go out and get on their own trucks and things. So it really made all the difference in the world. Stop that revolving door. And that's kind of a side note. So bringing it back to this whole, you can't lead others where you haven't been, all those things make sense and they sound good, but That's the brilliant area. What about the foolish area? Where does it fall short? One of the biggest things to me is in Christ, as believers, we are complete in him, and we are made complete in him. And he already has the vision, the sight, the foresight, and the foreknowledge of what needs to happen and where to go. We have all these potential possibilities in front of us of where we could go, but he already has that in mind. Think of Abraham when he was called out of his land to a promised land that he did not know. Abraham was a wealthy man. He had servants, he had animals, he had property, he had family, and he had to lead them all out to places where he had not been. But he was following the one who knew where to go and who knew the directions. There are even places where you would think it would be successful, but it wasn't. Think of some of the best athletes that you know of, even Michael Jordan. As a coach, not that good. As a GM and owner, not that good. Maybe the best basketball player of all time, not that great when it came to actually leading others to be that in that place where he hasn't been. And there's all kinds of reasons that could be the case. My own experience was when I was trying to learn accounting in college, taking business classes and trying to learn accounting. I had a professor who was a partner at one of the big four accounting firms. I mean, he was up there, right? But he almost knew his stuff too well, and he couldn't teach just the basics, the foundational basics of accounting. The guy who was doing the best job of relaying that information and being able to get people into that accounting section, he hadn't been there. He hadn't had the success, so to speak, as much as this accountant that this professor, head of the department, should have had and should have been able to teach and convey to his students, but he just couldn't. He wasn't good at that aspect of it. So just because you can do it doesn't mean that you can necessarily teach it. Just because I am capable of it doesn't mean I can necessarily pass it on. And I still might be the blind leading the blind. In the same way, I would say even if you can teach it, that doesn't mean you're doing it. And in that case, where Jesus was talking about the Pharisees, I think he was telling them they're the blind leading the blind, because they were telling everyone what they needed to do, but they weren't necessarily even doing it themselves. What the whole law pointed to was Christ himself, and yet they weren't pointing to Christ. So they didn't even have a full understanding of it either. It seemed like, from a human standpoint, especially at that time, they should have been the ones to follow. They should have been the ones that you could go and learn from. It should have been the ones that could lead to where they had been, but they were the blind leading the blind, and they were both going to fall into a pit. So those are some areas where it's essentially failed, and why it's failed, where it's kind of been foolish. And another thing I would say is in many instances, of course, you can lead someone where you haven't been. I think business leaders, I think presidents and rulers and kings, and they have done it all the time, over and over and over again. And you have to, because if you're going to go into a venture, especially you think of some of these maybe big businesses that are going places that other people just haven't gone, new inventions, new industries, you kind of have to be a leader, and you have to lead where you haven't been. But there is the aspect of knowing where you're going, not being blind about it. So maybe I haven't been there, but I do need direction still. I need to understand where I'm going, have that destination in mind, and be able to see the road in front of me so I can know where I'm going. I can still be out front, and I can still be leading all my people to where I need to take them, where they need to go, where we all need to go as an organization. It just might be that I don't have to have been there, essentially, myself. So the biggest thing there, then, is let's not disqualify ourselves from going to a place, especially if it's a place that we really feel like God is leading us let's not disqualify ourselves from going there just because we haven't been there yet. Let's not be the blind leading the blind, but let's not disqualify ourselves. I want to tell a quick note about Proverbs 29:18, which comes up often. It says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." And I have heard that over and over again in this same context. Can't lead where you haven't been. Where there is no vision, the people perish. There are so many good scriptures out there about knowing where you're going, planning it out. There's, a man doesn't build a tower without first counting the cost, understanding what all is going to be involved in it, being prepared ahead of time, right? But that verse, where there is no vision, the people perish, the term vision there really means a prophetic vision, but it's really referring to like the law that they had. And the word perish there is that the people cast off restraint. So they might die, but it's because they cast off restraint. So where there is no law, people cast off restraint is another way you could put that in there. And the reason we know that it's interpreted that way is because of the last half of the verse that tends to get left off of there. Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keeps the law, happy is he. So essentially what it's saying is it's a guide kind of thing. If you don't have any kind of guides for the people, then people just kind of go into anarchy, and it's not a happy place to be. But with the guide and with the law, then it's a happier place. So just a quick note that it's not the same kind of vision that people are thinking about here, about understanding where you're going and having a plan. And also to keep in mind that a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. So whatever we're planning on doing, let's continue in the Word, in Scripture, in prayer, and make sure that God is guiding us and directing us in it all. So one other note to make here is about a story in Acts chapter 6. And this is the apostles were teaching the Word, and people started coming to them saying, hey, there are widows that are being neglected. And the apostles were like, okay, is this really our area, what we need to do and where we need to be? Do we need to go and take care of these widows and then lead people into doing that? Or do we need to focus on teaching the Word? And they decided they needed to focus on teaching the Word, and that it was better for others, the deacons that they ended up appointing, to go and take care of the widows. In other words, they were saying, yes, we need to lead this brand new church that's coming in, brand new organization. We need to lead them, but we don't need to be the do everything people. In fact, they didn't even choose the candidates. They selected people and said, hey, go choose the candidates, decide how this is going to be taken care of. We're going to focus on teaching the Word and beginning to lead this new organization, the church. I think we can apply that to our businesses too, that as things come up that really should be beyond us, is my best time going to be spent answering emails that other people could answer, scheduling when someone else, an assistant, virtual assistant could schedule? Is my best time going to be doing accounting and bookkeeping when someone else could be doing bookkeeping? Not only could they be doing that, but I could be blessing them by providing for them and paying them to do those things. And then beyond that, I could start to lead them as well. If they become part of the organization, I can start to lead them wherever it is that God is leading me, if I'm following God in what I'm trying to do. So the whole concept is a good concept in certain contexts. You can't lead where you haven't been. And when we're choosing our mentors, choose them wisely. But let's not disqualify ourselves, because we know the one who has been there. And if we're following the one who has been everywhere, then it doesn't matter if we've been there or not. Not only can we lead people, but oftentimes God has called people out and calls us out to lead where we may not have been before, but we have the sight, we have the mind of Christ, so we have the sight, we have the understanding, we have the vision necessary to not be blind while we're leading other people where we haven't been. I hope this helps. And as always, you can reach out to me anytime for anything that you need. I'm glad to talk to you and glad to have a conversation.